the cameras flashed, the crowd completely froze, and just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
We really do. And honestly, the story we're getting into today is it's massive.
It really is. Today's deep dive is centered around a headline that sounds like a movie script, but it is playing out in real time right now. The headline is, Prince Harry faces another major decision about his family.
Yeah, and usually when a celebrity or like a highly visible public figure sees their poll numbers drop, the worst case scenario is losing a brand deal, right? Or maybe some cultural influence.
Right, maybe a bad PR week.
Exactly. But with this situation, when Prince Harry's popularity dipped, he risked losing his actual armed bodyguards. Like, we're talking about a story where public opinion is literally a matter of life and death.
It's wild. And to properly do this deep dive, our listener, you sent us this incredible, massive stack of sources. We've got a very dense 2025 UK Court of Appeal judgment, recent Ipsos polling data, breaking news from The Guardian, The Times of India, and even a Swiss outlet called Bluewin.
Right. It's a lot of ground to cover.
It is. But our mission for this deep dive is to cut completely through that tabloid noise. We want to unpack the legal mechanics, the logistical nightmares, and honestly, the deeply personal realities keeping the Duke of Sussex and his family isolated from the UK.
Because the surface headline is just that it's the surface. The stakes right now are incredibly immediate. Next week, I mean literally next week, is the official one-year countdown to the newly announced Invictus Games Birmingham 2027.
Which is huge.
Right. And Prince Harry is due in the UK to mark the occasion. Originally, this was slated to be a major family milestone. He was supposed to bring Meghan and Archie and Lilibet over.
Yeah, but those plans for a family reunion, they have completely collapsed at the 11th hour.
Just fell apart.
Totally. He is now traveling alone. And to understand why a father felt forced to leave his wife and young children behind, we have to look past the family drama.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the bureaucratic foundation of this whole crisis.
The legal stuff?
Exactly. The May 2025 Court of Appeal judgment. The official citation for you legal nerds out there is 2025 EWCA Civ 548.
It's such a dense document, but it is the absolute linchpin of this entire situation. The whole legal labyrinth basically centers around one specific Home Office committee, RVAE.
RVE, yeah.
Right, which stands for the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures. They hold the ultimate authority on who actually gets taxpayer-funded armed police protection in the UK.
And they are the exact body that stripped Harry of his automatic round-the-clock security back in February of 2020. Right as he stepped back from official duties and moved to California.
Yeah, moved to North America, completely shifted his life. Right. And looking at his core legal argument in this 2025 appeal, he isn't just saying like, oh, they made a mean decision. He's arguing that RVS acted unlawfully.
Unlawfully, yeah. That's a big distinction.
Huge. He says they violated their own internal rule books, specifically the 2017 Terms of Reference. His legal team argued that RVF's policy explicitly required them to commission a formal risk analysis from their risk management board before they altered anyone's security status.
And they just didn't do it.
Right. It's undisputed in the court documents. RVF simply bypassed that formal analysis.
Wow. Taking a step back to look at the mechanics of that argument.
Yeah.
I mean, Harry is fundamentally challenging how threat is measured, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's pointing out that his inherited threat level, the actual real dangers that come with just being born into that family, those didn't magically evaporate the moment he stopped cutting ribbons.
Exactly. So is this essentially like an employee switching from a salaried staff position to being a freelancer?
Well, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. Like, you can't reasonably expect the company to keep providing your corporate health insurance if you aren't in the building every day. Even if your personal health risks, like, say, a severe pre-existing condition, haven't changed at all.
Yeah, and Harry is arguing his pre-existing condition is the threat to his physical safety. And that remains constant, regardless of his HR status with the palace.
Exact.
But taking your freelancer analogy a step further, the court had to decide if the company was justified in tearing up that standard insurance policy without a formal medical review.
Right.
And master of the rolls, Sir Geoffrey Valls, who delivered the judgment, he ruled that Airvik actually had a, quote, good reason, unquote, to depart from their standard policy.
Interesting.
Yeah, the court explained that the standard risk models are designed exclusively for principals who actually live in Great Britain and carry out predictable daily public duties.
Wait, just to clarify for the listener, when the court documents use the term principals, they are referring to the actual targets being protected, right? Like the VIPs themselves.
Yes, the protectees. So the court's logic was that because Harry stepped out of that core working cohort and moved abroad, running the standard risk matrix would be like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
It just doesn't work.
Right. The metrics didn't apply to a non-working royal living in California. So rather than forcing the old model, RAVA created what the court termed a bespoke arrangement.
A bespoke arrangement, which basically means his security is now evaluated strictly on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, which sounds so exhausting.
It does. He has to give them notice when he visits the UK, tell them exactly what events he is attending, and then they decide in the moment what level of protection he warrants.
And the court ruled that RAVC is an expert body dealing with national security, right? So judges shouldn't micromanage their operational decisions if the underlying rationale is logical.
And legally speaking, treating a non-working member differently than a working member is a logical rationale.
Sure, yeah. So the court effectively hands Harry this case-by-case security status, validating the bespoke approach. But practically speaking, how do you plan a secure international trip with a young family on a maybe?
You literally can't. And that is exactly what brings us to the devastating real-world consequences we are seeing unfold right now this week. Because courtroom logic just doesn't translate to logistical reality.
It really doesn't.
If you're loving these Hollywood twists and deep dives, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead, and you won't want to miss them.
Definitely hit subscribe. But getting back to the logistics, looking at the reporting from The Guardian and the Times of India, this upcoming Invictus trip was supposed to be the first time the Sussexes returned to Britain as a family in 4 years.
4 years? That's a massive deal.
It is. This was supposed to be the window for King Charles to finally see his grandchildren again in person. He hasn't seen them since the 2022 Platinum Jubilee.
And the king's ongoing health issues just add this tremendous amount of gravity to this missed opportunity, right? Like this wasn't just a casual holiday.
No, it was widely viewed as a critical moment for a family reunion.
But the reality of that bespoke arrangement just slammed the door shut. According to the reports, Harry's request for police protection outside of official royal residences was declined for this specific trip.
Lie.
Yeah, and he refuses to subject his children to the paparazzi without armed guards. You know, he remembers the aggressive car chases he and Meghan have endured, specifically that terrifying one in London in June 2021 after a charity event, and then that highly publicized chaotic chase in New York in May 2023.
I remember that New York one. It was everywhere.
Exactly. So he's reportedly distraught, but he simply will not put a 5- and 7-year-old on a transatlantic flight just to be chased by photographers the moment they step off the plane.
I mean, if we connect this to the bigger picture,
yeah,
the structural flaw of a case-by-case system is that it removes all predictability. And if you are managing the safety of high-profile targets, predictability is your most valuable asset. But Buckingham Palace views this lack of predictability through a completely different lens.
How so?
Well, according to sources speaking to the news, the palace is reportedly, quote, weary and wary, unquote, of this entire saga.
Weary and wary.
Yeah. From their point of view, they offered Harry accommodation on a secure royal estate for this visit.
Okay.
But Harry's team reportedly kept pushing, essentially threatening to scrap the family's trip entirely if armed police protection wasn't granted beyond those estate gates.
Wow, okay. Let's ask the listener to consider both sides here, because it's framed as an absolute mess and a soap opera by palace insiders. But objectively, if Arvavec says security is case by case, isn't Harry completely justified in wanting that case confirmed before putting his young kids on a plane?
Oh, totally. We are seeing complete breakdown of trust on both sides, and it's fueled entirely by the lack of a permanent framework. Harry feels he cannot rely on the government to protect his family in real time, so he demands absolute guarantees before boarding a flight. The palace, on the other hand, feels Harry is using these security demands as leverage.
Right, which makes them question the motives for the visit itself.
Exactly. Rovec's legal victory has basically institutionalized a perpetual standoff.
But wait, here's where it gets really interesting, and that's not even the wildest part, because that entire bureaucratic framework, it might have just been thrown out the window by a terrifying real-world event.
Oh, absolutely.
The standoff seemed permanent until an actual physical threat forced a total reassessment. According to a breaking report from the Swiss outlet Gluewin, there is an imminent U-turn happening.
A full U-turn.
Yes. Rovak has reportedly reassessed Harry's risk profile, and the decision is that he will once again be entitled to automatic armed Scotland Yard protection when he's on British soil.
If this holds true, it represents a seismic shift in the landscape. And looking at the catalyst for this sudden change, it wasn't a bureaucratic change of heart. It was a severe incident in September where a woman reportedly threatened Harry online and then actually managed to physically approach him at 2 different public events in London.
And it was his private security team that had to physically intervene and stop her. The state apparatus wasn't there.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And that incident single-handedly proves his core argument, doesn't it? Like, a stalker doesn't care if you are a working member of the royal cohort or just a private citizen.
Yeah.
The vulnerability is identical.
Yeah, demonstrated the exact gap in the case-by-case model. Archie assesses threat based on known intelligence, but private individuals acting erratically often slip through those intelligence nets.
Exactly.
When private security has to step in to protect a member of the king's family in central London, the optics and, honestly, the liability for the Home Office become disastrous.
So a tangible physical threat essentially overrides the cohort rule that the Court of Appeal just spent dozens of pages defending. And if this U-turn clears the final bureaucratic hurdles and armed protection is fully reinstated, the main logistical roadblock to bringing Meghan and the children over is completely removed.
Which could change everything for 2026 and beyond.
But navigating the Home Office and family tensions is only a fraction of what he is dealing with on this solo trip next week. He is also staring down the barrel of a massive legal judgment against the British press.
The timing is just extraordinary. Right in the middle of this Invictus countdown, on July 7th, a ruling is expected in his high-stakes privacy case against Associated Newspapers Limited.
The publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday.
Wait.
And the scale of this lawsuit cannot be overstated. We aren't talking about a simple defamation claim over a bad article. This is a massive, multi-claimant lawsuit over historical, unlawful information gathering.
It's huge.
We are talking about allegations of phone hacking, the deception of medical professionals to get private records, and hiring private investigators to place listening devices inside homes and cars.
The scope of the allegations strikes at the very heart of how the British tabloid press operated for decades. And Harry is fighting this alongside other massive cultural figures, right? Like Elton John and Sadie Frost.
Yeah, the heavy hitters. And the financial stakes are just staggering. Reuters estimates the costs could easily run into the tens of millions of dollars for the losing side.
Wow.
If the judge rules against the claimants or dismisses the case, Harry could be on the hook for an astronomical legal bill.
That's terrifying.
But looking at the mechanics of why he is fighting this while simultaneously fighting the government over security, you realize they are 2 sides of the same coin.
How do you mean?
The press drives the paparazzi chases and the intrusion, which directly elevates his physical threat level. So he's trying to dismantle the threat at the source in the civil courts, while demanding the government protect him from the symptoms of that threat on the streets.
That makes perfect sense. Fighting a 2-front war against the state's security apparatus and the nation's largest media conglomerates requires an enormous amount of capital. And I don't just mean financial capital. It requires profound political and public capital.
Which brings us perfectly to the data you provided on how the British public actually views him. But real quick, stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, because the numbers here are fascinating.
They really are. Looking at the September 2024 Ipsos poll, the British public is fundamentally fractured on the Duke of Sussex.
Deeply split.
Yeah. Despite his high-profile and objectively successful work with the Invictus Games, only 34% of the public are in favor of him returning to royal duties on a permanent basis. 37% are actively opposed.
It's a razor-thin margin that reflects a deeply polarized nation. But the underlying demographic breakdown is where the real story lies. 46% of 18 to 34-year-olds support his return to royal duties. Contrast that with the 55 to 75 age bracket, where only 19% support him.
It's a massive generational divide.
Totally. We are seeing a younger demographic that perhaps sympathizes with his focus on mental health and his battles against the tabloid press versus an older demographic that heavily values institutional duty and loyalty to the crown.
And when you look at pure favorability ratings, the contrast is stark. Prince Harry sits at 28% favorability, and Meghan is at 21%.
Ouch.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Prince and Princess of Wales are soaring at 65%, and 66%.
The disparity in those numbers illustrates the immense uphill battle the Sussexes face in the court of public opinion within the UK. But there's also a delightfully absurd statistic buried in this Ipsos poll that we just have to highlight.
Oh, I love this part.
The pollsters actually asked the British public to choose between the famously feuding Royal brothers and the famously feuding Gallagher brothers of Oasis.
A polling question that could literally only exist in Britain.
Right. And the Royals won. 36% preferred the Royal brothers over 17% for Liam and Noel Gallagher.
Unbelievable.
But looking past the novelty of that stat, does this polling data actually matter to his mission? I mean, if he's a private citizen now, living in California, funding his own charitable foundations, producing his own content, why does a private citizen need the British public to like him? Does he need their approval, or does he just need their security forces to keep him safe?
It's a great question. On the surface, approval ratings shouldn't matter to a private citizen at all. But if we dig back into the mechanics of the RAVV's 2017 terms of reference from those court documents, there is a crucial phrase buried in their risk assessment criteria.
What's the phrase?
The document states that RAVV's evaluations must take into account judgments about the, quote, risk appetite of government, unquote.
The risk appetite of the government, meaning how much political fallout is the Home Office willing to absorb to protect a specific individual?
Exactly. The government is democratically elected and entirely accountable to the taxpayers who fund Scotland Yard. So public perception inevitably dictates that risk appetite.
That makes total sense.
Right. If a public figure is wildly unpopular, dedicating millions of pounds of taxpayer money to their armed protection becomes a massive political liability for the Home Secretary. So while Harry doesn't need the public's adoration to validate his personal life, he absolutely needs a baseline of public support to make his security politically viable.
So popularity isn't just a vanity metric or some PR goal for him. It is literally currency. It is the currency you spend to secure your own physical safety when you exist in that incredibly strained, unprecedented space between global royalty and private citizenship.
Yeah, every public move, every charity appearance, and the optics of every single lawsuit are indirectly lobbying for his family's right to state protection.
Wow. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of this massive stack of sources? We've untangled an incredibly complex web today. You have a dense court of appeal ruling that justified stripping a man of his security based on a bureaucratic definition of a cohort. You have a terrifying stalker incident that exposed the flaws in that bureaucracy and might force a total U-turn. You have an 11th hour canceled family reunion that leaves a grandfather waiting. And hovering over all of it is an impending mega lawsuit against the British tabloids, all playing out in front of a deeply divided public.
When you strip away the royal titles, the palaces, and acronyms like RVF, you are left with something profoundly relatable.
Exactly. Beyond the spectacle, this is fundamentally a story about an employee trying to navigate a bureaucratic nightmare with a former employer's HR department. It's about the very real pain of family estrangement. And at its absolute core, it is about a parent's primal desire to simply keep his children safe while trying to do his job in the public eye.
It is a human dilemma amplified on a global stage. But analyzing the trajectory of the standoff leaves us with a final provocative thought to consider.
Let's hear it.
For the last 4 years, the lack of taxpayer-funded armed security has been the primary stated reason for the physical distance between the Sussexes and the rest of the royal family.
Yeah, they've said that repeatedly.
It is the explicit reason given for why Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet cannot visit the UK. Now, if this reported U-turn by RAVEC is finalized and armed protection is fully and automatically restored, Harry will have won the logistical battle he has been fighting since 2020.
The ultimate bureaucratic victory. He gets exactly the shield he has been demanding.
But if that security roadblock is completely removed and the family still doesn't reunite, what excuse is left?
Oh, wow. That is the million-dollar question. Because if the police protection is restored and the physical distance remains, it forces everyone involved to admit that the real barrier wasn't Scotland Yard. It was the family itself.
The narrative immediately shifts from a logistical crisis to a purely personal estrangement.
That is definitely something to chew on as we watch the Invictus 2027 countdown next week and wait for that massive July 7th court ruling.
It's going to be a tense week.
Very. Well, you've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.